Good morning, children. Welcome to our YouTube channel Academia Ambala. I'm Mrs. Preetinder Shaheed. Today, we will do a chapter from the book It So Happened for Class 8. Have you ever ridden a camel? Have you noticed that it has a hump on its back? And do you know that camels are also known as the ship of the desert? Why? Well, camels can go without food for days while traveling across the long distances, and it's the hump on its back that helps it to retain food and water. But the camel supposedly did not have the hump always. At least the story we are going to read today said so. So, how did it get hump? Let's find out. The story that I'm talking about is titled How the Camel Got Its Hump and is written by none other than Rudyard Kipling. Yes, he is the man who gave us the character that we all love, and that is Mowgli. He was born in 1865 in our very own Mumbai. A prolific writer that he was, he quickly achieved fame as a short story writer. In 1894, his famous book, The Jungle Book, published and became a children's classic all over the world. In 1907, he became the first Englishman to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. Well, coming back to our story, How the Camel Got Its Hump is a story from one of Rudyard's collections called Just So Stories. The story is set in Arabia at a time when animals just started working for man and camels did not have humps. So, how did they get humps? Let's find out. The author is talking about the time when the world was new and when man was just beginning to learn the art of domesticating animals. Amongst all other animals, there was a camel, and this camel lived in the middle of the desert because he did not want to work. He only ate sticks, thorns, and prickles, for they are the only things available in a desert. The camel was so lazy that whenever anybody spoke to him, all he would say only one word: Humph. Isn't that strange? Now, the other animals tried their best to make the camel do some work. The horse, the dog, and the ox visited the camel and asked him to join them at their respective jobs. But all he replied was, Humph. The other animals went and told the man. At the end of the third day, the man called the horse, the dog, and the ox together and said that since the camel did no work, they have to make up for his part and work double time. Obviously, this made the three animals very angry. They held a panchayat on the edge of the desert. Then the jinn, who was in charge of all the desert, appeared in a cloud of dust. The horse, the dog, and the ox complained the jinn that camel would do nothing all day but say humph. The jinn informed the three animals that it was his camel that they were referring to and promised to look into the matter and teach the camel a lesson. Well, the camel does deserve a punishment for being idle, doesn't he? After the jinn heard the dog, the ox, and the horse's complaint, he went in search of the camel and he found him looking at his own reflection in the pool of water and admiring it. Even when the jinn inquired about his idleness, all the camel said was, Humph. The jinn told him because of his laziness, the other animals had to do overtime, and it was not fair on the camel's part. Yet again, all the camel had to say was, Humph. With all the indifference, now the jinn had already warned him against saying hump again. So, after responding to the jinn with the hump for the second time, when the camel saw his back, it had puffed up into a great big hump. And the jinn told him that the camel had brought upon that hump himself by not working for 3 days. When the camel asked how we can work with the hump on its back, it's only then that the jinn informed the camel that he wanted the camel to catch up with his 3 days of work. So, there is a reason behind giving him a hump. He could work for 3 days continuously without taking any break to eat and drink, as he could live on his hump. It means the hump was kind of a food reservoir, and that's how the camel got his hump, or hump as we call it. Well, till date, he had not caught up with his 3 days of work. That's why we see the camels carrying the hump on their back and traveling across deserts for days without food. Now that you know how the camel got his hump, by now you must have understood that the story is written with a purpose in mind. So let's look at the theme of the story. In this story, Rudyard brings out the theme of laziness. Effectively, as we read, the camel would not do any work at all, and owing to his own idleness, the other animals had to work double time. Obviously, this is unfair, and that brings us to another theme. The author has kept same fairness when Jin got to know that the horse, the dog, and the ox had to do overtime as the camel did not do any work. To be fair, he punished the camel by giving him a hump, as this hump would help him work continuously without taking any break and would enable him to work for 3 days that he missed out. So, the main idea here is to make the reader understand the importance of hard work. Laziness will not lead us to success. In fact, by avoiding work, we will end up piling a lot more than we can do. So, always finish your work at the earliest and don't leave it for later. That brings us to the end of another interesting story. Have a nice day.